StreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are on part 2 of our mini-series, Trashing Hip-Hop quote-unquote culture. This is not really the hip-hop culture, but what many people call the culture. That's what I'm going to be trashing here in part 2. So if you missed part 1, make sure you check yesterday's episode. Before we get started, 2 things. My text message number down below in the description. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. Have me as your direct coach. Get access to all of our trainings and courses. Get access to me on our live coaching calls, whether you want to talk to me privately, whether you want to be on our group calls. We have options for everything. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, learn more about our program and how you can get involved. All that out the way, let's get into the topic here today, which again is trashing, or what many of you refer to as hip-hop culture. So I'll pick up right where we left off, which is on point number 4 of our series. 1 through 3 was yesterday. Number 4, extreme financial consumption. Now, this one is a very subjective term because extreme consumption for me may not be the same as extreme consumption for you. So for some people, spending $100 is extreme. For some people, $1,000. For some people, $1 million is extreme. This is one that became very popular. This whole concept, however, became very popular regardless of their dollar amount back in the 1990s, with rappers telling you about how much the jewelry that they were wearing, the houses they were allegedly living in, the cars that they allegedly drove, and other flashy material things that was all designed to generally let you know that they, the rapper, could afford to disregard money because they had so much of it coming in that it didn't matter if they paid zero attention to how the money was being spent. Now, if someone is making enough money that they can afford, quote unquote, to waste money in some way, and they can throw a bunch of money at strippers in a strip club or go buy a car that they don't even remember how much it costs or don't even care what it costs or don't even drive it, even though they spent a whole bunch of money on it. If someone believes that they're in a position financially to afford that, then fine, they can do whatever they want to do. It's your money, your choice. You do whatever you want to do with the money. But the problem is, in today's world, there are plenty of stories of rappers and athletes, and many athletes are influenced by hip-hop culture the same way that I, a former athlete, is influenced by hip-hop culture. Live as if they want to emulate the rapper or emulate what the rapper is rapping about. And by the way, for those of you who don't understand this, many rappers rap about shit that they ain't actually doing. They rap about violence that they have not actually done. They rap about street things that they have not actually lived. And they rap about material things that they do not actually own. But they'll rap about it because it sounds good in music and it is popular. And it gets the message across to the youth that maybe they got to do the exact same thing, or not even youth, even adults, that they have to do the exact same thing that these rappers do. And you hear many stories about rappers and athletes losing their financial resources shortly after their careers are over, and they end up not having money. Whether they end up filing for bankruptcy, whether they just end up broke, whether they end up not having a lot to show for their prosperous careers when they were at their peak 5 years ago. Now they're not popular anymore, and now there's not really much money left. There are many stories of this, and one of the reasons that this happens is because in our culture, it has not been looked at as cool to look after your finances, to pay attention to what's happening with your money, especially if you are publicly noted for having money. And often we'll take athletes out of this, because with an athlete, you can go online and you can look at exactly what their salary is. But with entertainers, you have no idea how much money these people are actually making. You don't know. And if you're a rapper and you create an album and half of the songs you're telling people about all the nice material things that you have, how much money you have, well, you have to keep up appearances so that when people see you, you look like all the stuff you were rapping about in your songs. So you basically set a trap for yourself to where you feel like you may have to keep doing certain things and spending in a certain way financially to maintain the appearance of what you rapped about in your music. This applies not only with finances, it also applies with your claim to be violent. It also applies to your claim to have street people around you. There's also claims of the claims of being a person who's ghetto and you're from the hood and you always hang in the hood, like Nipsey Hussle. So these kind of things, you're basically setting a trap for yourself with the stuff that you make music about and make yourself popular with, because now you got to keep doing it in order to maintain your credibility with the fans that you have garnered by saying the shit that you said in the first place. And finances is one of the ways that this ends up happening. So when you look around on social media these days, we see that people are impressed by this stuff. People are impressed by anyone who can show off any type of financial resource. Let's just put it that way. If I was to take a picture standing in front of vehicles or luxury cars or in lavish condominium buildings or hotels or sitting in first class on a flight, it would, and depending on how I decide to frame it, like visually frame it, and then how I decide to talk about it verbally, it can draw a lot of attention from a certain audience of people just because I'm showing that I have that thing. And again, this is not just limited to black people, because there are people, period, who will be impressed by it just because of the fact that I'm showing it to you and the way that I decide to talk about it. And I have friends in the entrepreneurial space who use this to their advantage because they're looking for a certain type of person in their audience. I personally am not looking to draw people into my audience based on, let me show you what I have. I can show you things, but that's not the type of, I don't want you coming into my audience because I got that, or because I have this, or because I can show you that, or because I did that, or because I sat here on a plane. Those things are not, I don't want you to be impressed by me because of that. Even if I was telling you it as a truth, that's not what I want to be the main thing that hooks you in, but that's just me. There are other people who look at it completely differently and they use this to their advantage and it works for them. More power to them. This is the way that you want to work. The point being, if you look around on social media, the most popular people you will see will either be girls taking off their clothing or a man showing off their material possessions, aside from the famous people. Now, if you're already famous, you can pretty much do anything on social media, and because you're famous, people will pay attention to it because you're you. But I'm talking, if you're a non-big name person, like you're the type of person who would walk through the mall and nobody would stop you and know who you were, the way that you get known on social media is either by a girl showing off your physical assets as best you can, or as a man showing off your material assets as best you can. This is just what it is. And some people are entertained by this. Many of you spend a lot of time on social media looking at this shit. I would suggest that you don't, because it's taking away your most valuable resource and you're making social media money while you are not participating in the upside of that money. But this is never going away. I will tell you it's not going away. So don't be mad at social media for having it. Be mad at yourself for being tricked into consuming it, because it speaks to the most base desires of human beings. The most base desires of heterosexual men is the sex that is teased to you by women showing you their bodies. Right? That's the most base desire of a man. And the most base desire of a man also, when it comes outside of sex, is to be able to have the material things that many men believe that if I had more of these things, then that means I could have more of these women. And I understand the connection between them. It's a little bit indirect, but it is a connection, because if a man has enough financial resources to be able to have a really nice car and stay in this nice hotel and have this nice house, then that must mean he has money. And there are many women out there who are basically available for sale or for rent. This is a real thing. I'm not saying this as a joke. That there are women out there available for sale or for rent. I live in Miami, Florida. I know the game. All right, this is how it works. I'm not saying all women. I'm saying there is a segment of women who are available for that. So a man who tends to have those things tends to have more access to those women. Is this real? Yes, it is. Is hip hop culture the creator of this? No. But does hip hop culture promote it? Yes, it does. It promotes it a lot. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that this doesn't work. All right, it works. I just explained to you that it works. I'm saying that this sets a bad example for people who should not look to go get jewelry just because you just got some money. That shouldn't be the first thing that you do. But hip hop culture teaches us that that's exactly what you should do, because we hear about many of our favorite rappers doing exactly that. As soon as you get some money, you need to show people that you have the money. And if you read books about, let's just say books that are based around the concept of millionaires, the millionaire next door, how many millionaires live or even billionaires live. First of all, most millionaires and billionaires, you don't know their names. They are not famous and not on social media telling you that they're a millionaire or a billionaire, contrary to what many of you think. Many of you have been indoctrinated and conditioned to believe that everybody who has a whole bunch of money are the people who are telling you they have a whole bunch of money, when it's actually the opposite. Most of the people who have a whole lot of money, whatever you consider to be a whole lot, don't tell you that they have the money. They don't want you to know that they have the money, and they're not doing anything to show you that they have it. And they might be standing right behind you in line at Starbucks, and based on looking at them, you can't tell they have anything because they don't wear it in front of your face. Whereas again, in our culture, it's almost become almost like a passport. The only way you have money is to show everybody that you got it. And if you don't show it, that means you don't have it. And again, many people were raised on this way of thinking. So when they come across having some money, or they look at somebody and want to know if they have money, the first thing they're looking at is trying to figure out, does this person have money? and often you can't always tell. With most people who have money, you can't tell by looking at them. Now, there are some people who try to show you that they have it by showing you what they have, but doesn't necessarily mean they have money. And also, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to show it to people. But in our culture, this is what we made into a thing. So the point is that these people, as I said in the first part of this series, these people all insisted their stories are real, which makes a stronger impression on someone than if you told them that you were making things up just for entertainment or that you were faking it. All right, in hip hop, one of the biggest things, you got to be real and honest. And even when people are lying, they insist they're telling you the truth. So again, that's another point, not even one of my main points here. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, is trashing hip hop, quote unquote, culture. Number 5, sexualization of young women. Now, when I say sexualization of women, I don't just mean by the women. I don't just mean by the men. I mean also by the women. The women are sexualizing themselves. I remember when was this? This was in mid-2024. The NCAA women's tournament was happening, and LSU was playing against Iowa, and Iowa beat LSU. And after the game, one of LSU's players, her name is Angel Reese, a very well-known player, not a very talented basketball player, but good rebounder, but not very skilled in terms of basketball, but very well-known because of the taunting that she did of Caitlin Clark the previous season. After they lost that game, she was in the post-game press conference, and one of the things that Angel Reese had said was that in the last year, she had been attacked a lot on social media and got a lot of trolling on social media, which I believe. And one of the things that she said was that I've been sexualized. That was one of the words that she used. I've been sexualized. And she was basically blaming it on this nameless, faceless mob of people on social media who have been coming at her since the previous season. And if she believes she had been sexualized, I wouldn't argue with her. The problem is, if you look on social media, and I don't follow her anywhere. I don't follow anybody on social media, but looking at her stuff, you could find pictures of her posing in bathing suits and bikinis and showing off her physical attributes for the attention that comes with it. And then she's on the podium after a basketball game with tears in her eyes saying that I've been sexualized. Like, excuse me, miss, you haven't been sexualized. You sexualized yourself. You put your body out there for consumption. You put your body out there to get the likes and the engagement and the response that comes from it. Don't be mad with the blowback don't be mad at the blowback that comes with it. All right, if you advertise your ass, then people are going to be clicking on a link to see your ass. All right, that's what it is. If you advertise ass, then you're going to draw in a whole bunch of people who are looking for it. That's just how it works. And her saying that she'd been sexualized, she was saying that to paint herself as a victim of the internet mob, but you can't paint yourself as a victim of the internet mob when at the same time you're famous because of the internet mob. Now, the internet mob made her famous because of her mocking of Caitlin Clark the previous year in the basketball game. She's not famous because of her ability to play basketball. Now, I've seen her play basketball. She ain't very skilled. She's not famous because of basketball. She's famous because of the mocking and then all the things she's doing off the court. Basketball alone, aesthetically, she's not a person that people are signing up to watch. But this whole point of sexualization of young women, let me get to my bigger point here. This is not just the male rappers who frequently refer to women as bitches and hoes. That's become so common. I remember back in the 90s when there were a lot of adults then, who would condemn rappers for using this language. There was a lot of condemnation of this. Queen Latifah, who's still alive as of this recording, she had a song called UNITY, and in that song she's talking about, she was basically explaining to women and to men, y'all can't be going around calling women bitches and hoes. That's disrespectful. It is not tolerated, and we're not going to go for it as black women. Queen Latifah had a whole song rapping about this, and it was a very popular song. Might be the most popular song Queen Latifah ever made. Now look where we are. Now we have women calling themselves bitches and hoes, and they're proud of it. So this is part of, and part of calling themselves a bitch or a hoe is these women are sexualizing themselves. So let's go further because I got more on this point. So it's women who buy into this concept. Yeah, I'm a bitch. Yeah, I'm a hoe. They don't mind being called that. They actually call themselves that. And they look and they welcome men calling them that. And actually, you probably wouldn't respect the man who didn't call them that. Just from my life experience. Again, not every woman's the same. I'm not saying all women. I'm saying there is a class of women out there who want to be referred to as bitch and hoe by the men that they deal with, and any man who wouldn't call them bitch or hoe, they would not respect that man. Again, I've been around several blocks. I know what I'm talking about. And we're talking specifically about hip hop culture, but these women are influenced by hip hop culture, the women I'm referring to. And this is also women who celebrate the music that men are putting out saying these things. And there's also the women who have gotten involved in making this music themselves. So I mentioned Cardi B earlier, Megan Thee Stallion. They made a song together called WAP. And WAP stands for Wet Ass Pussy. So these are two female rappers who made a song called Wet Ass Pussy. And it's not a metaphor. They mean it literally, that their vaginal areas get extremely wet. And this is a sexual song. That's what it is. And that's literally the name of the song. And hey, maybe their pussy is very wet. I don't know from personal experience. But I don't want my daughter listening to that song. Like, if I got my mom in the car, I'm not playing that song. I don't see any other culture that tolerates, let alone celebrates, artists who make that kind of music. This kind of music is not brand new. All right, there's a rapper from back in the 90s named Akinelli. He made a song called Put It In Your Mouth. And the song was all about a woman giving oral sex to a man. And there was a verse of a woman talking about a man giving oral sex to her. That song was out in the 90s. It's a very popular song. But the song was in the shadows of hip hop. The song didn't become a super crossover song because you couldn't really play a song like that on the radio. It was underground, it was a hit, but you couldn't really play a song like that on the radio. Akinelli could not become world famous for doing that. Akinelli was not invited to go speak in the 90s. He wasn't at Bill Clinton's Democratic campaign rallies telling people who to vote for because he was not popular. He was popular with hip hop fans, but he wasn't mainstream crossover popular with everyday people based on that song. But Cardi B was at Kamala Harris's convention. Megan Thee Stallion at Kamala Harris's, was it convention? Either convention or a campaign rally. Megan Thee Stallion was at a Kamala Harris campaign rally. Why? Because we have made this stuff mainstream. That's hip hop culture. All right, so any of you, again, who is still trying to hold on to this concept that this is not the culture, yes, it is. It is the culture. I don't agree with it being the culture, but it is the culture. That's why I'm talking about it. So I often hear black people of prominence talk about how black females are the most disrespected demographic in the United States. I hear people saying this all the time. The black woman is the most disrespected person in America. Okay, well, let's look at our most influential people. They are usually entertainers. Let me ask you a question. What kind of message are they putting out regarding black females? And who is supporting and buying it? Our most popular people of our culture in the black world are not politicians. They are not scholars. They're not scientists or doctors or physicians or educators. They're not the thought leaders and intellectuals. They are entertainers. And what are these people doing when it comes to women, specifically black women? What are they doing? We got the bitches, we got the hoes, we got wet ass pussy songs. And again, the women are participating in this. I'm not saying all women. But I'm saying our most popular, this is what they're doing. So who are you condemning? You ain't got nobody to condemn. We got to look at ourselves. Who's supporting and buying this music? Again, I'm not saying who is backing it, because you can back anything. Somebody can back cigarettes. You can put $1 billion campaign behind cigarettes right now and advertise it everywhere in my neighborhood. Doesn't mean I'm going to buy a single cigarette or take a single cigarette. Just because you're advertising it doesn't mean I got to buy it. Who is supporting this stuff? So we can't blame the white man for that. Point number 6, today's topic once again is trashing black hip hop, quote unquote, culture. Number 6, general ignorance. General ignorance is part of the culture. Back in my elementary school days, even into high school, it would often be frowned upon by the cool kids to be, quote unquote, too smart, doing too well in school, or even appearing to be trying to do too well in school. Being smart made you a nerd. And this is back before being a nerd was a cool thing to be. Hip hop culture encourages general ignorance. It encourages not being smart, and it encourages at least pretending to not be smart and talking and acting and thinking as if you do not have proper home training or common sense. So here's what I mean by this. There are rappers out there who are actually very intelligent individuals. They understand what I'm saying here. They could be listening to this and actually believing and agreeing with every point that I'm making. But if you listen to their music, you would think this guy's a fucking idiot based on the stuff that he says in his song. But away from the microphone, he's actually a very intelligent and articulate individual. So you may ask that person, why are you rapping like this when you could just rap the way that you actually are, and let's see how you do with that. And they would say, and many of their fans would say, well, if you rap like that, it's not going to make any money. It's not going to sell any records. And this is what I mean when I say, now how much is your integrity worth? So you're willing to sell out your community and push a message of ignorance to the people who follow you just because somebody's going to give you a bunch of money to do it. And I'm not saying that everything that you do for money has to be something that you are 1000% excited about and really, really engaged in. But you don't have to push a message that is negative or a message that's not going to help people just because somebody's giving you money for it. It's like if somebody has a landscaping business, are you just infatuated with the concept of landscaping? Probably not, but you understand that landscape is going to make you money. That's why you do it. If you have a concrete laying business, are you in love with concrete? Probably not, but you understand that the concrete is going to help make you money. So I'm saying that to say, just because you being one way is not going to get you as much money as being another way, if the way that is going to get you the most money is also putting a negative stain on your community and hurting people with the message that you're giving them and putting people in a position that they could possibly be influenced in a negative way, it doesn't justify you taking, quote unquote, the bag just because you're going to get the bag. Again, you're selling out your integrity and selling out your community just because somebody will give you money. This is one of the problems that we have just in general in our society, that there are people out there who will do or say anything if you offer them enough money to do it. And this is a problem, because we end up with a lot of low integrity people and people being influenced by these low integrity individuals. This is a big problem in our community. And we encourage this general ignorance. You see young men walking around, nowadays I see it everywhere I go, young men, often black, walking around with their pants hanging off their asses. And what we mean is that if you look at them when they're walking away from you, you're seeing the back side of their body. The waistband of their pants is below their behinds. I don't know if any of you know where that comes from. That comes from jail culture. And again, this is what I've heard. I don't know this from personal experience, but in jail culture, when a man is walking around jail with his pants hanging off his ass, that is a signal to the other men in the jail that his rear end is available for sexual entry. That's what it means. So when I see a man walking around the mall with his pants hanging off his ass, or just walking down the street with his pants hanging off his ass, I often wonder to myself, either A, that guy is gay, or B, he doesn't even know where that comes from, but he's emulating what he's seen on TV or on the internet or what he sees his friends doing, and he doesn't even know what signal he's giving off. That's where it comes from. All right, that's ignorance. Even if you are gay, all right, do you walk around with your pants hanging off your ass just to make sure everybody knows? I don't know if that's the only way you do it. What do heterosexual men supposed to do? Walk around with our penises out? Let everybody know? Let the girls know? All right, what is this? But this is what we're doing. So again, when someone is giving off this energy, or whether they're acting or it's real, and they become popular, of course it's going to influence other people to do the same thing. This is just the way it works. When you become popular for doing a certain thing, other people are going to emulate the thing that you're doing. In this sense, I understand why people say that somebody like, let's say you don't like Donald Trump, you say, well, Donald Trump's way is influencing other people to be like Donald Trump. I get it, while at the same time, I don't think Donald Trump's way is negative any more than anybody who's going against Donald Trump would be negative. But I understand the framing that someone uses when they say that. See, if someone comes off as dumb and unintelligent and they end up failing, then it will be a repellent. But if you come off as dumb and unintelligent and you end up a prominent entertainer who is allegedly making a whole bunch of money, based on your lack of intellect, lack of insight, or lack of any type of substance, well, of course, other people are going to emulate that. You're going to create copycats. One egregious example of this is how the Democratic Party continues since 2008, even before that, 2004, 2008, 12, 16, 20, and 24 presidential campaigns have rolled out a bunch of no substance, ignorant rappers to speak to the hip hop community and tell us who we're supposed to vote for because they said so. Again, who else does this? What other culture does this when they're trying to influence their people? Do they pull out the rappers and entertainers and say, listen to these people, let them tell you what to do? Listen, I'm not even mad at the politicians for doing it. They're just doing what they have to do to win votes. I'm not mad at them for playing their game. What I'm mad at is the fact that they did the research and found out that these are the people who have the most influence. That's the part that makes me annoyed. That the fact that they're correct. That, we want to influence black people to vote, we got to go get some ignorant rapper who raps about bitches and hoes and killing people and drug use or drug dealing and going to jail, that's the person who's going to influence the most people to vote for us. Now, it's looking like this tide is starting to turn and people aren't listening to this shit anymore, but they've been doing this for, again, 20 years. And that's 20 years is enough time to influence a culture very strongly. That's my point. So this is a culture and a home training issue. This is not an entertainment issue. That's the last thing that I want you all to understand here. Everything I'm talking about here is not trashing the entertainment. It's not trashing the rappers even though I have some opinions about them. It's not really about trashing them. Because again, I listen to the music. I like these rappers. But again, I can separate one from the other. I can separate the entertainment part from the, all right, here's a prescription for what you should do part. I'm not influenced by, like, I think I need to go live like Jay-Z or 50 Cent. Or Drake or Kendrick Lamar or anybody else. Now, this is a culture and a home training issue. Meaning that if you have the proper culture at home and you have the right home training from your parents, then you can consume the nonsense from these rappers and not be influenced by the nonsense. Now, I understand you consume anything often enough, some of the influence will seep in, but you have to be able to separate one from the other, which I have the capability of doing. That's why I keep explaining it. And most of you should have it. And if you're a parent, you better make sure your kids have it so that they're not influenced by the bullshit that they're taking in, because the bullshit your kids are taking in today is way more, and it's much more expensive, and it's much more easy to access than the bullshit that you and I took in when we were kids. So you better be doing your job, parents, and making sure your kids are not influenced by the nonsense. And that starts with the way that you are installing a certain worldview into your children and not just sending them off into the world or onto that phone or to a school where they're being influenced by stuff that you don't even control. Because that's going to fall back on you. All that said, let's recap here. Part 2 of our mini series here of trashing hip hop culture. Number 4, extreme financial consumption. People just showing off how much money they're spending without thinking about where that money is going. There's one thing to spend money, is another thing to invest money. And you don't hear many rappers rapping about that. Number 5, sexualization of young women. This is not just by the men calling women bitches and hoes. It's also by the women who are okay with being called bitches and hoes. There's also by the women who are calling themselves bitches and hoes and making music called wet ass pussy. Again, do you want your daughter talking like that? And number 6, general ignorance. Back in my elementary school days, being smart was looked at as a not cool thing. You were a nerd who would get attacked just for being too smart. And in hip hop, this continued in our culture. You see young men walking around with their pants hanging off their asses, and many of them don't even know what that means, unless there's a whole bunch of gay guys walking around, and I didn't know it was so prevalent. The Democratic Party keeps rolling out hip hop artists to influence people in our culture, because I guess they've done the research and realized that this works. And the fact that our culture has continued to respond to it is the reason why they keep doing it. See, if we weren't responding to it, they wouldn't keep doing it. So when I see a rapper at a Kamala Harris rally or Barack Obama campaign event, then it tells me that they did the research and said, these are the people that are going to get the most attention. Let's bring this dumb rapper out to talk to these people. That'll get them to listen. As soon as they see that the dumb rapper no longer has influence, they'll stop bringing the dumb rapper to the events. So really, I'm holding the culture. When I say the culture, I'm not talking to air quotes culture. I'm talking just all of you parents who are at home with your kids. You better be paying attention to what your kids are consuming and make sure that whatever they're consuming on that phone, on that screen, at that school, or out in the world is not superseding the worldview that you should be installing into your children. Because if you fail to install that worldview, your kids are going to be out there doing whatever the internet or whatever school is telling them to do, which might be different than what you want them to do. So this is where I'm holding the households accountable. This is not about the entertainment industry. It's not about the white people who run it. It's not even about the rappers. Is about who is being influenced and how is it so easy to influence these people with this nonsense. That's really what it comes down to. All that said, everybody, workonyourgameuniversity.com. All right, you want to be influenced by, or you want to be influential with some actual substance in the world and put some good out into the world and build a business off doing it all at the same time, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, have me as your direct coach, and let's get to work. Work on your game. Dre, all